The 7th of August, 1890. Today, the final stone was set in the foundations of Blackwood Asylum. The sound of hammers echoed through the valley, triumphant at first, but soon transforming into something else, something unbearable. A resonance that struck not just stone but something deeper, a hungry void, waiting to consume everything. Each strike seemed to tear a piece from me. To others, this will merely be a refuge for the forsaken. To me, it is far more. This place is no mere structure, it is a gateway, a turning point where reason and horror unravel. And once opened, who can ensure it will ever be closed again? I walked the unfinished corridors. The scent of lime and fresh stone should have been invigorating, yet it was oppressive. As though the earth, in its eternal corruption, sought to choke the air itself. There was a weight here, dense and heavy, emanating not from the walls, but from within them. As if each block, each beam, was imbued with something I cannot yet understand, but feel in every fiber of my being. The wind, streaming through broken windows, carried sounds my mind refused to process. The creaking of fresh wood was almost human, like labored breathing, a suffocated presence. And then, the murmurs. They did not come from the workers nor the wind. They were echoes. But of whom? As the evening light painted the stones a deep, blood-red hue, a sense of powerlessness crept over me, a faint weakness. But I refused to yield. This place does not command me. It is an extension of my will, my reality. Everything here, from the crack of stone to the whisper of shadows, serves me. As the laborers packed away their tools, I heard a whisper, "This place is cursed." I did not turn. They do not need to understand. They cannot. There is no curse here, but something far more profound. Something their fragile minds cannot grasp. This ground, steeped in anguish and despair, holds a promise. I can see it. Something only I can reach. At the incomplete entrance, the wind brought a distorted melody, like a forgotten prayer. In the silence, an overwhelming sensation of being watched enveloped me. I did not turn. I could not. This is my dominion. With every stone placed, it becomes mine. With every breath of wind, it bends to my will. Eleanor's presence, she is here. Closer than I can bear. I feel, in every spark of my being, that she is not lost. This place, with its filth and darkness, will not stop me. If secrets lie buried here, they will yield to me. The 15th of August, 1890. The asylum's halls remain empty, yet they are not. Something resides within them now. Something that holds me captive. The sounds. They are not merely echoes, not just the wind or the creak of floorboards. They are footsteps, footsteps belonging to no one, dragging themselves through the asylum like a shadow caught between past and present. I tried to rationalize, to dismiss the idea that I was hearing what should not exist. But a part of me, a part that grows harder to silence, knows the truth. These are not mere echoes. They are not just noises. They are presences. Presences with something to say, something stirring within the stones, within the walls. The workers, as always, shy away from what they cannot understand. They speak of superstition, of fear, but they have no grasp of what is truly happening here. They do not know what I am beginning to see. They do not understand what these walls truly hold. But I do. The asylum is awakening. And it is calling to me. Last night, I dreamed of Eleanor. Yet it was not her. The field where she stood was grimy, distorted. Her hands were wet, covered in something dark, something that seemed to writhe. She called to me, but her voice was no longer her own. It was deep, sluggish, as though it came from a place where death holds no meaning. I could not reach her. The field stretched endlessly, and she simply vanished. I awoke drenched in sweat. The asylum around me was silent, but there was something in the stillness that chilled me to the bone. Something is watching me here. something I cannot understand, but which draws nearer with each passing day. And I cannot turn away. The 1st of September, 1890. The first patients arrived today. Walking shadows, torn from a world that has forgotten their names. To society, they are lifeless flesh, bodies lost to the abyss of neglect. To me, they are pieces, fragments. Each carries a sliver of the puzzle that will lead me to Eleanor. One of them caught my attention. His hands trembled like leaves in the wind, his gaze feverish, as though he were too aware of something even I cannot yet grasp. As I passed him, he murmured incoherent words, but his tone grew, as if he wanted to scream, to warn me. I did not turn. They fear. Fear is natural. This place, with its oppressive presence and shadowed mist, has that effect. There is something alive in the walls, a pulse that slowly drives them to madness. That night, I descended into the tunnels, determined to find a rational explanation for the heavy silence that haunts these corridors. What I found was far darker. The silence wasn't mere emptiness, it was something deeper, as though the air itself was suffocating. My breathing echoed, amplified, the only sound permitted to exist in that void. The patients react in unusual ways. One man spends hours staring at a wall, unblinking, as though seeing something beyond human perception. An elderly woman screamed today, pointing to a shadowed corner and muttering about eyes watching her. But it is not the asylum that terrifies them, it is the madness they carry within. The same madness that feeds whatever lurks in the depths of this place. Or perhaps it is something else. Something older. Tomorrow, the experiments begin. This place is not haunted, no. It is my laboratory, my bridge to the impossible. Eleanor is so near I can almost feel her. The air vibrates with the promise of her presence. The 13th of September, 1890. The experiments have begun, but the results have been frustrating. The human form is fragile. Today, I attempted an experimental transfusion, a desperate effort to sustain the life of a patient on the brink of death. Every parameter was exact, meticulously calculated. Yet, the heart simply stopped. I stood there, scalpel still in hand, watching as life drained from the body. It was almost theatrical. Every movement seemed rehearsed, as though the body knew what was coming, the final breath, the blood ebbing away, the void filling the space where vitality had once been. There was a strange beauty in its horror. I should have felt frustration, but instead, something else stirred, something unsettling. A sound. It began while the body lay still on the table. Soft, almost imperceptible. I thought at first it was the wind playing tricks with the structure, but this sound was not the wind. It was constant, a faint sigh, like breathing. But it wasn't mine. Nor was it the dead man's. When the patients were taken back to their cells, I remained. The laboratory should have been silent, but the sound persisted. It wasn't mere noise, it had a pattern. A cadence. It was as though the walls themselves were speaking to me, their murmurs forming words just beyond my comprehension. I approached the wall where the sound seemed strongest, cautious, as though the air there was heavy with something unseen. Something that, if I listened too long, might rip me from the grasp of reason. I stood there, hand against the cold stone, my heart pounding in rhythm with the faint whispers. They weren't random. They weren't meaningless. The walls were alive with something waiting to be heard, understood. As I leaned closer, the sound almost formed into words. Almost. But I could not stay longer. I pulled away, the faint vibration still lingering in my ears. Whatever lies within these walls, whatever voice speaks through their cracks, it is patient. And I am listening. The 27th of September, 1890. The sensation of being watched has become unbearable. This is not paranoia, it is real. Something watches me. It feels as though the asylum itself has hidden eyes in every shadow, observing me relentlessly, waiting for the perfect moment to consume me. Even in the solitude of my office, where the night thickens like a suffocating shroud, I feel those eyes. They are there, in the cracks, the walls, the darkened corners. Wherever I go, they follow. Margaret, one of the nurses, fled today. I found her trembling uncontrollably, consumed by panic. Her words were tangled in terror, a jumble of incomprehensible dread, but one thing was clear: the tunnels. She spoke of something she saw down there. Something, tall, with glowing eyes. I tried to calm her, but it was futile. The terror she carried was absolute, and hours later, she left the asylum, swearing never to return. Her screams echoed through the night, and the sound of them still haunts me. Shortly after her departure, I descended into the tunnels, armed only with a flickering lantern. The corridors were empty, but the sound of my footsteps was wrong. Something else moved with me, just beyond the reach of the light, waiting to devour me. It was not the echo of my own steps. It was something more. Something that watched me, hiding in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to strike. Margaret spoke of voices. Whispers. That, I can explain. They are echoes of the fractured minds of the patients, amplified by the corridors, twisted by the madness that consumes them. Yet there was something in the way she spoke, an unshakable conviction, that disturbed me deeply. She saw something. Something I cannot comprehend, but which chills me to the core. The patients grow more restless. Patient 34 has begun scratching at the walls, as if trying to dig his way to something on the other side. Between his screams, he mutters incoherent words, something indecipherable. One of the nurses swore it was an ancient language, something between Latin and a forgotten dialect. I laughed at this. Foolishness. There are no such languages. There is no reality to what cannot be seen, cannot be touched. But what if there is? What if he has touched something? Have I awakened something? My practices are pushing the boundaries of what is known. I have crossed thresholds few dare to approach. But have I disturbed something that should have remained dormant? I do not believe in ghosts. The supernatural is the refuge of weak minds. But the unknown is vast. And that vastness consumes me, dragging me into dark places I may not return from. Margaret fled with terror in her eyes. And her screams still echo, a curse etched into my mind: there is something down there. The 3rd of October, 1890. Patient 47 spoke Eleanor's name today. Not once, not twice, but repeatedly, like a chant. Eleanor. Eleanor, that name, forbidden, locked away in a reliquary buried deep within my mind, spilled from his lips like a breath of life. Eleanor. She is here. Her name has never been spoken in this place. Never. It is a memory I guard with the last spark of sanity I possess. And yet, there he was, patient 47, uttering her name with an intensity that made me stop, frozen, as though the air had been ripped from my lungs. I went to his cell. He sat on the floor, unmoving, his eyes glassy, staring into a void no one else could see. When I asked him where he had heard that name, he did not react. His expression was distant, empty, but his voice carried the weight of someone who knew too much, someone who had crossed the boundaries of madness into a realm beyond human comprehension. Eleanor, she is here. For a moment, our eyes met. Those were not the eyes of a man lost to madness. They were not the eyes of a sick, forgotten soul. There was something there, something that made me shudder. It was not a mere delusion. It was not simply another fractured mind. There was a profound knowledge, a darkness that seemed to transcend humanity itself. It was as if the asylum was trying to show me something, or worse, as if it already knew she was here, that she had never left. I must monitor him closely. Every word. every movement. If he continues to utter her name, if he persists, drastic measures may be necessary. The 5th of November, 1890. The patients are in ruins. Their already fragile minds are now shattering in ways that defy all logic. They murmur incessantly, their words drifting between absurdity and profanity. Hysterical laughter blends with screams, echoing through the corridors like a symphony of despair, a dissonant melody that burrows into the bones. I always knew there would be failures. Human flesh is weak. The human mind is fragile, malleable, but inevitably breakable. Progress demands sacrifices. But what I witness now surpasses anything I anticipated. It's as if the asylum itself is consuming them, devouring them from within, like a slow, incurable disease spreading through their very essence. The whispers have grown louder. The shadows bolder. They no longer linger only in darkened corners, but creep through the halls, crawl across the cells, slither along the walls. When I try to confront them directly, they vanish, but not without leaving something behind. Something tangible. A cold residue in the air, like a trace of something that doesn't belong to this world. Last night, as I reviewed my notes, I saw something in the corner of my vision. A shadow. In the reflection of an instrument, I swear I saw a figure standing motionless behind me. I turned instantly, heart pounding, but there was nothing. Only emptiness. The same emptiness that surrounds me, suffocates me, with every step I take. The oldest patients are the most affected. Patient 47, in particular, has become something beyond enigmatic. He mutters Eleanor's name endlessly, but now his murmurs are mixed with words I cannot recognize, a language that sounds like an invocation. Words that should not exist. Words that chill the air, filling the space between them with a gnawing sense of emptiness. And yet, he holds an energy I cannot ignore. Something about him draws me in and terrifies me at the same time. As his mind crumbles, something else grows within him. Something monstrous. Something that feeds on darkness and fear. Tonight, the voices returned. They were no longer distant echoes. They were close, whispering directly into my ear. I couldn't discern the words, but the tone was clear. Someone, or something, was speaking to me. Calling to me. Wanting something from me. This place is awakening something that should never have been touched. Perhaps my experiments have torn the veil between the possible and the impossible, between the living and the dead. And whatever lies beyond, is no longer distant. For a moment, I felt fear. A primal, visceral terror, a scream deep within my spine, as if something inside me was begging to flee. But I cannot. Not now. Fear is irrelevant. Eleanor is so close I can feel her in every shadow, in every whisper. If this place is a portal, so be it. My sanity, it is a small price to pay. Eleanor is all that matters. I will sacrifice everything for her. The 20th of November, 1890. Today, I descended into the tunnels again. The sensation of being watched has grown unbearable, almost oppressive. It feels as though the very stones of the asylum are aware of me, as though they are waiting to consume me. The air was thick, saturated with something alive. Something that observed me from within the walls, waiting, biding its time like an unseen predator. The whispers began as soon as I entered. They were no longer faint echoes but words I could not understand. They twisted and intertwined, as though trying to communicate. The walls seemed to breathe. The ground trembled beneath my feet, as if the asylum itself was alive, pulsating with a malignant energy. Something was watching me from within the earth. Something that knew me. As I walked through the corridors, each step felt like a journey further from reality. The sounds, they weren't just my own footsteps echoing. There was something else, something walking beside me, breathing with me. Something crawling in the shadows, waiting. Waiting for me. When I finally reached the depths, the very heart of the tunnels, the air grew impossibly dense, heavier than before. The silence was absolute, yet within it lay a weight, something that crawled through the walls, whispering, as if the asylum itself sought to absorb me, to devour my soul. A deep, unshakable fear gripped me, a sense that I stood on the edge of something irreversible. I saw something there, in the depths of the tunnel. A figure, faint and hazy, like a mist. It wasn't a person, nor a shadow. It was something older. Something that waited. As I approached, everything vanished. The vision, the sounds, the very air around me. I was engulfed in an absolute darkness. Now I know. I am not alone. And I never will be again. The asylum is not merely a place. It is a being, a monstrous entity devouring me slowly. It knows my fears, it knows my desires, and it knows Eleanor. The 10th of December, 1890. Today, as the end seemed within my grasp, something deeper revealed itself. My work is nearly complete, yet the air, thick, heavy, shifts with each breath, invading my body, choking every thought, every impulse. I feel as though I am being watched, as though the asylum itself now observes me as deeply as I have observed it. The machines hum in perfect harmony, their sound almost beautiful, precise, an unrelenting, maddening dance. Yet, as I adjusted a valve, something distracted me. My reflection. In the curved mirror of the laboratory, I saw something that wasn't entirely me. My eyes, no longer mine. They were sunken, hollow, filled with something pulsing, something not of this world. And then it moved. Before I did. Its lips twisted into a smile, empty, cold, stripped of humanity. It wasn't a reflection. It was a window. A window into something beyond. I stumbled back, my body reacting before my mind could catch up. Yet the weight of the moment clings to me still, rooted deep in my bones. The mirror is distorted, and what it shows is no longer a reflection I can control. Eleanor, is it you? Is this something that has grown in this place as I shaped it? Or something, like me, lost to the abyss of what should never have been touched? It doesn't matter. Tomorrow, everything will be complete. Eleanor will return. If she does not find me, if she does not recognize me, then let her gaze upon whatever remains. For in the end, this will be my final sacrifice. The 15th of December, 1890. Today, the preparations are finished. Everything is ready. The machines, the compounds, the patients, each detail meticulously calibrated, like the gears of a clock ticking toward the inevitable. Eleanor is within my reach. The impossible will become real. She will be mine again. But something has shifted. Something is wrong. The air in the laboratory is oppressive, heavy with a strange vibration. The shadows, once merely dancing at the edges of the light, now seem to consume the room. They don't move aimlessly anymore. They move with purpose, as if they know what is coming. As if they wait with inhuman patience. As if they are waiting, for me. As I adjusted the final components, I felt a presence behind me. This was not like before, not a faint murmur, not a distant noise. It was tangible, almost physical. The sensation of someone, or something, standing in silence, watching, waiting. And most terrifying of all, it knew I knew. I spun around, my heart racing, but there was no one there. Only emptiness. The same emptiness that has been devouring me piece by piece. Yet the feeling lingered. Something was there, observing, waiting. I couldn't see it, but I could feel it. The patients are deteriorating. Each of them is a walking torment, a soul crumbling before my eyes. They murmur without pause, their voices blending into a cacophony that fills the corridors and invades my mind. Some of the voices sound familiar, as if they come from a place beyond time, whispering secrets I never wanted to hear. Patient 47, my primary focus, is no longer human. He does not react like the others. His murmurs have become something else entirely. No longer words, but chants, a lamentation that echoes through the room with a resonance that feels inhuman. The tone of it makes the flesh crawl, burrowing into the skin, refusing to let go. What he says, I do not want to hear. But he will not stop. She is here, he chants endlessly. He calls to her. And I feel what he feels. Every sound, every word, pulls me deeper into something darker. And even knowing this, I cannot stop. I cannot. I saw what I saw in the mirror. I cannot turn back. The portal is open. And it no longer matters who, or what, crosses through. Eleanor is coming. And I am already lost. The 16th of December, 1890. The day has arrived. The patients were positioned. The machines activated. The energy in the laboratory was unbearable, as though the air itself had gained consciousness, pulsing with a power that defied reality. I could feel it consuming my soul, dragging me into a realm where reason falters and ceases to exist. Patient 47 sat motionless, his gaze fixed on something unseen. His murmurs, once incomprehensible words, had evolved into an ancient language, something I was never meant to understand. Yet the rhythm was captivating, hypnotic, as though he were conducting the experiment alongside me. With each of his breaths, reality seemed to bend and distort. He is part of this. I am part of this. As the process began, the room changed. The air grew thicker, heavier. The shadows no longer moved erratically but converged, forming shapes, figures that should not exist. They moved with purpose, with intent that eluded my comprehension. For the first time, I, who had always held control, felt powerless. The light itself faltered, flickering not into darkness but into the shadows, which swelled and consumed the laboratory in growing waves. And then, she appeared. Not as before, a fleeting vision, a whisper at the edge of my thoughts. This time, she was there, fully formed. Yet, she was not as I remembered. Eleanor, the woman I loved, was transformed into something unrecognizable. Her once familiar form was twisted, intangible, like a reflection fractured by a shattered mirror. Her eyes, which had once been vibrant with life, were now infinite voids. They were not merely eyes, they were portals, and as they locked onto mine, I felt myself being pulled into an abyss of incomprehensible terror. She spoke. But the words did not emerge from her mouth. They materialized in the air, reverberating against the walls, burrowing into my mind like a curse. Her voice was not heard, it was felt, rooted deep within my essence. Why did you call me? My response caught in my throat, strangled not by the lack of words, but by the overwhelming force of her presence. Her question was not an inquiry, it was a condemnation. Eleanor was no longer the woman I sought. She was something greater, something beyond flesh and time. She was the beginning and the end, the transcendent force that obliterated the boundaries of existence. Then patient 47 screamed. The sound was not human. It was a rift in reality, a cry of anguish that tore through the air, shaking the foundations of the laboratory. It wasn't just a scream, it was the sound of existence itself unraveling. His voice merged with hers, creating a cacophony that filled every crevice of the space, shattering my mind and body. Each word, each sound, tore through me like an open wound. The machines began to fail. Valves burst, steam flooded the room, gears shattered, none of it mattered. The collapse was not mechanical. The collapse was within me. Everything led to her. Eleanor did not smile. She didn't need to. She existed beyond understanding, beyond emotion. Her form shifted, dissolving and reforming with every step, trapped between two worlds yet belonging to neither. Her feet never touched the ground. When she extended her hand, there was no warmth, no life. only emptiness. The void she carried. And then, everything went dark. Of 1890. When I opened my eyes, the laboratory was silent. The machines were destroyed. The patients, dead. Eleanor was gone. But something remained. Something within me had changed. I could feel it, crawling beneath my skin, pulsing deep within my soul. It was as though a piece of her had been implanted into my very being. A presence that whispered, that lingered, that called to me in ways I could neither understand nor resist. I can no longer distinguish my own thoughts from hers, or from whatever came through the portal with her. My mind, my body, they are no longer mine. I am part of this place now. And what this place has unleashed, lives within me. Forever. Blackwood Asylum is not merely a place. It is an entity that breathes and harbors horrors that time itself could not erase. Its silent corridors echo with whispers of the past, revealing disturbing secrets buried in the diaries of Edmund Blackwood and the confessions of others who dared to cross its threshold. Doctors, nurses, and patients left behind traces of a history that should never have been uncovered, illegible scribbles, fragmented accounts, terrifying visions. Every record, every whisper, weaves a mosaic of terror that refuses to be silenced. It is as if the very walls of the asylum carry a living memory, waiting for those brave enough to uncover it. Subscribe now and uncover the dark secrets that still lurk within the shadows of the asylum. But remember, there are stories that were never meant to be told. Are you prepared to face what lies hidden in the darkness?